Hello, this is Anthony. Let's walk and talk. So, why do you care what other people think? Why do you care if other people believe the same things that you believe? Why is that important to you? Why do you choose performative relationships over authentic ones? See, we're going to discuss ego a bit and why, when you're focused on ego, in many ways, you're not being authentic to self. You're not loving self. You're not believing in self. And there is a clear and distinct separation between where you think you are and maybe where you should be. So let's start with this. Why do you care what other people think? You see, this one is one of the key questions that we have to really answer for self when we're on this journey, because this is the one that determines where you are on your path. What I mean by that is, this is the one that says, hey, I don't really love myself. I don't really believe in myself. I don't really trust and respect myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get validation from people external to me in order to fill that void that I can't fill for myself. And why it's important to understand this is because without understanding this, what you're doing is you're setting yourself on a path where you're going to continue to do things like convince yourself that the reason you do this is because you're an introvert or you're an extrovert or you're just a fun person or you care about people and relationships and you want to continue to nurture and grow those and on and on and on and on and on. However, the fact is that when you're doing things based on a internal lack or an internal love for self, internal belief and respect for self, what you're actually doing is you're just using external forces to convince yourself that you feel that love and validation for self. You see, I'm not suggesting that you can't have external relationships and close, deep relationships, but you see, in every relationship, there's equal give and take. In every relationship, there's connection. And essentially, based on how you feel about self, is going to help determine how deep that relationship goes. What do I mean by that is that when you find yourself in a position where you're the one always carrying the weight, you're the one always reaching out, what you're actually doing psychologically is you're looking for validation outside of self. You're people pleasing. You're saying, I'm not good enough alone. I need others around me in order to make me feel like I have value. Now, you might argue and say, well, I don't know if I believe that. That's not true. But think to yourself, is it? You see, most relationships where both parties truly care and desire each other, there is equal give and take. The other party will reach out. The other party will make effort. And if not, what essentially is happening is that other party is using you as their validation. What do I mean? I mean, for instance, when you start looking at things like attachment styles, what ends up occurring is people who are dismissive, they truly want and desire relationships. However, they don't have the capacity to self-regulate because it's not something that was modeled to them. And so they prefer to keep distance. When things start getting too close or getting quote unquote heavy, they take a step back. And what happens is a lot of times they will then wait for you to reach out, or they'll wait until they've regulated their self through solitude and a desire to have that meaningful connection, and then they'll actually reach out and connect. And this is important to understand again, I'm not villainizing these folks, because anxious people do the opposite, which is anxious people, especially overly anxious people, will continually reach out over and over and over, because their validation is, well, you answer the phone. When you answer the phone, what can I do for you? How can I gain that connection with you? So I'm not trying to demonize one or the other. It's a spectrum. We talk about the spectrum on the journey. And in order to understand ego, you have to understand the spectrum, because the ego operates on the entirety of the spectrum. That's why sometimes it can sneak in when you least expect it. That's why sometimes you can feel like you're on the right path, and then sit down, look in the mirror, and all of a sudden, oh no, that wasn't me. This is why it's important for others to believe exactly the same things you believe. You see, your ego says, when this person believes the same things you believe, it validates that you are correct in your assumptions, and it validates that this person is safe, because in that validation that you are correct in your model or in your thinking, you also now have someone to validate that you're not the only one that thinks that. You see, and this is important to understand, because a lot of times the wisdom of Creator is within you. The wisdom of connection is within you. And when you're looking external for that, it doesn't mean other people aren't going to think or believe the same way you do. But if you're choosing your friend group strictly off of that, what's happening is you're choosing your friend group, you're curating your friend group to validate the self, to validate your ego. And again, this is what happens when you do this. The last question, why do you choose performative relationships over authentic relationships? See, when you're constantly looking for ego validation in other people, what you soon discover is that these relationships are performative. Give you an example. Most people, when they go out on a date, what do? Women go to the salon, get their hair done, get their nails done, try to look pretty. Men, they, prim and are prim and proper, and they'll go out and they present an image of the self that they want to present, but it may not be their true image. Same with the women. You see, and we do this dance for a particular period of time until we get to a point where we can't keep up the illusion of who we tried to create, because we're not yet that person or that being. And so we start to allow the real us to come out. And when that happens, the other person doesn't match the other person in vibration, whether high or low, doesn't matter where you're at on the spectrum. And so the relationship generally starts to deteriorate. What I've never understood is, why? Who told you need to do that? Who told you that you should be somebody that you're not in order to attract somebody? You see, when you truly love the self, you shouldn't have to change who you are in a meeting or in several meetings in order to convince that person to care about you, to like you. You see, when you understand that you are whole and complete, and that you are worthy and have value and are lovable regardless of whether you have that other person's love, that is when you're going to start to attract people who are actually, and this is going to sound egoic, worthy of you. Because you're going to attract someone who matches your frequency, who aligns with your frequency and vibration. And those are the folks where you don't have to perform in front of them. You can just be self. And when you're your true authentic self, then you're having an authentic relationship. You're not performing for that person. When you can show up as yourself and you can set your boundaries and line up your expectations or your desires in the connection, because remember, expectation is something you can be projecting versus allowing it to mirror. You're essentially taking the transactional aspect of the relationship out, and you're becoming authentic. When you meet someone who says, I love you for you, and I understand that this is who you are, and I'm here with you, and I support you, and I care for you on that journey, that's a beautiful thing. However, a lot of times that's not what you run into. You run into people who will join you on the journey for the illusion that you've created. And then once that illusion begins to deteriorate, so does a relationship. You see, this is why it's so important to understand who you are, because when you understand who you are, that's when you start to understand some certain very important aspects that need to be remembered. As my friends in the South would say, God made you and God don't make no mistakes. So you are the way you are for purpose. And that's a beautiful thing. But when you start to find yourself out of alignment with yourself or life, you start to follow down, as we've talked about in the past, the programming, and you're just becoming, for instance, like your parents and your culture and those things, and you're unwilling to budge, yet you can see in your life that that's not served you. That's when you start to ask the question, is it ego or is it authenticity? And that's a very important question that you need to ask. So again, I ask you, why is it that you need the approval or seek validation from others? Why is it that you can't love and respect other people unless they have the same beliefs and values as you? Why is it that you choose transactional relationships over authentic ones? What say you? As always, if you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. I am truly grateful. Until I talk to you again, peace, love, light. Hope you have the most amazing day.